Yeah.
I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball, So listen to Professor, yes sir, yes and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're going to have the rest of the team join shortly, but for us, we're going to get you started with just the two collabo with AD Drew and Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. With that being said, welcome to episode 433 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora. That's all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NEIA to the NCAA. We have some NIA news as well today, so we'll get that out here, get some thoughts on that as well. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. For short, we just call it HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host today, A.E. Drew at the beginning. Mike Washington, Charles Bishop should be along for the ride. We'll see if we can bring them in. Or you know how they do. They might both be out on assignment, busy men for many different ways. I guess I got to raise my fees to see if I can get them full time. It's just not quite working like that. But we're filming from our home studios and sitting live at KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Fame and beautiful home, Texas University, Houston, Texas. With that being said, A.D. Drew, thank you for holding off. I see you're ready to crack up on me. But how you doing today, and what are your thoughts?
I'm doing fine today, Doc. I'm doing fine. And, I made sure that my assignment ended in enough time for me to get to my home studio. And, in my post-coaching career, I spent time as an official. And I know you like to pull out the academic rules for when people are late and close the door on them and all that stuff. I'm going to pull out the officiating rules. Okay. If you're not here by halftime, I get your pay. That's all I want to say to y'all fellas. Y'all better make it here by halftime, or else me and Doc go split y'all pay. Now you already fine. So one of y'all already got to buy the beer on the way home. So I just want y'all to throw that out there. So.
That should be right up Mike's alley. He's always trying to buy somebody's around, so he'll
a little bit of insight behind it.
Yeah. Exactly. Today's episode of Inside HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. Good stuff there, Drew. What else you going to add?
I'll say that's just a little bit of insight behind the word of officiating for those of you all who've never done it. Yeah, it's more than the cause. There is a brotherhood, and sometimes there's some. Shall I say hazing? There's some initiations and discussions. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
That go on behind the scenes.
We're gonna take the hazing out of the vocabulary. It's a little challenging right now. We're gonna be careful with that. But with that being said, I'm gonna shift right back to you and talk about some of this NIA GCAC news of the week.
Well, the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference has extended its membership invite to Wilberforce, who accepted, and it was a unanimous vote by the GCAC Council of Presidents in September, and they will officially join the GCAC in 2024. As the only HBCU conference within NAIA, The GCAC represents a vibrant community of like-minded institutions committed to empowering student athletes through exceptional educational experience. And here's a statement from Wilberforce University President Van R. Newkirk. Currently, Wilberforce has few regional rivals. This impacts fan interest and the ability of the university to garner the interest of the students. Joining an all HBCU conference allows graduates of the institution to rekindle relationships with the schools that the university historically had rivalries. It also allows us to tap into regional HBCU alumni bases and thus increase our ability to earn a few dollars to support our athletic programs. Finally, for our students, it allows them to participate against similarly funded programs and to attend games against familiar teams. I think that sums it up in a nutshell, Dr. Cavil.
Good stuff. I want to get your thoughts on it. But before I do that, shout out to one of our colleagues that comes into our spaces as we discuss the hot news of the day so we can all make sure we're staying on top of things. We can get some insight because we have colleagues throughout the industry. Many of them you see as guests on the show, some of them you don't, that oftentimes shares with us, if you would, their thoughts on different news and why it's happening and things of that nature. So the curator of RIP 28 podcast, if you would, asked a pointed question earlier today. Can someone, one of you more educated brothers, as he puts in parentheses, or sisters, give me a little more clarification on Wilberforce going to the GCAC? And it is a good thing. They are a 7-hour bus trip from the nearest school. I could see they play football. He could see it if they play football. And this was a football-only move. That's just 5 trips a year. But for basketball, studying, baseball, volleyball, how does it financially make sense? And he says, I'm legitimately confused. So I shared back. GCAC scheduled conference games in clusters to reduce travel. So traditional home and away schedule you think about for basketball in the CIAA, MEAC, SIAC, and SWAC is not the case. I would suggest the HBCU nuance and similarity funding program for competitiveness along with HBCU cultural experience, which we talk about on the show all the time. Both student athletes can be significant. Think about the cluster format that is or in the SWAC for sports and volleyball that just took place this past weekend with the SWAC, where you had the SWAC East cluster, Alabama A&M, Alcorn State, Grambling State, Jackson State, UAPB, Pine Bluff, Arkansas Pine Bluff, and Mississippi Valley State in Jackson, and then the SWAC West cluster, which was Bethune-Cookman, FAMU, Florida A&M, Alabama State, Prairie View A&M University, Southern University, and Texas Southern University. Might have one of them flip the other cluster. But generally, you see what many conferences are doing now, have done for a short time, and they're doing it at GCAC. So he was thankful about that. And just this is a circle nature. In fact, I put this out there in terms of conferences going to 16 teams, 4 cluster divisions, and things of that nature almost 15 years ago. So sometimes you're ahead of your time for one thing, but that's really a separate question. But just wanted to share for folks that may not quite understand that. Remember, they also recently brought in University Virgin Islands, which will play in a cluster format, which is unique. And my understanding that expansion for the GCAC, while we're not able to say the name, Drew, in terms of one of those insiders, to share that there may be some additional spending. In fact, there's likely going to be an announcement possibly as early as this week. But with that being said, I think it's important to provide that context about giving a framework for what that is. And so with that being said, before we might touch on some other things, quick thought from you, Drew, about that analysis. You agree with it? Are you on the same page of kind of seeing that?
Yeah, I 100% agree with it. I watched the cluster format last year during basketball season. It was interesting seeing teams play 3 games in 3 days. And honestly, I think a residual benefit of that format was those teams were a little bit more tournament tested, because that is the format that you see in the tournament. 3 games in 3 days, 4 games in 5 days, depending on the tournament. So when the conference tournament came around, and then those teams that went on to the national tournament, they were already used to that. Their legs were already used to playing like that. They knew how to compete and recover in a 3-game in 3-day format. But let's stick with the basketball tournament. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Cavil. Wilberforce brings the GCAC to 11 member institutions next year, correct?
Yes.
So when the other shoe drops that I told you guys about, and you've also had some knowledge from other sources other than mine that this thing is probably going to drop this week, that puts the GCAC at 12. Why is 12 a magic number in NAIA? That is because now your basketball conference gets 2 bids to the national tournament. And we've always talked about our HBCU conferences not getting their due share. Well, we're guaranteed to have 2 beginning in 24, assuming no one leaves the conference in the midst of all that. So that allows your regular season champion to enter the tournament. That allows your tournament season champion to enter the tournament. And if your tournament champion is the regular season champion, that allows your tournament runner up to go in place of that. So one of those 2 automatic bids. So, opportunity to get to the national tournament for our kids and to get them more exposure.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Shout out to Dr. Kiki Baker-Barnes, the commissioner of GCAC, obviously the first African-American woman to lead that conference. With that being said, this is a conference that, a couple of years ago, people were concerned that it may die, particularly when Stillman left, Xavier was left. There was some concern would they be able to hold ship, Talladega. There were some major concerns about the ability for this conference. Not only has it survived, but now it's thriving and expanding to the point where in basketball, they get to 12, you have 2 automatic bids. Totally amazing work, among other things that she has done. In the recommitment, this is a conference now that has essentially a full-fledged baseball program that will earn automatic bids and things of that nature in terms of significant tournament, with programs that literally are institutions that literally didn't have programs just 2-3 years ago. So think about that. So a lot of work. And kudos to Dr. Kiki Barnes.
And they've added volleyball also in a couple of institutions who did not have volleyball also, Dr. Cavil.
Well said. Gender Title IX perfectly to make sure we put that out there. Quickly, we're going to go to our first break. We'll come back. We'll get Mike involved, get him on the show. He's joined us, and then we'll do that.
Mike's buying the beer since he was late.
Exactly. North Carolina Central football named FCS National Team of the Week. Was courtesy of FCS National Team of the Week, a Stats Perform. Also, in terms of that vein, we'll give you some players of the week. We'll do that in a later segment. But rankings, I think this is intriguing. FCS Top 25, whichever one you talk about, you have a couple of them out there. You have North Carolina Central and Florida A&M ranked in various polls. North Carolina Central is hitting its plateau as it continues to climb. In one of those FCS polls, they have climbed inside the top 10. Number 9 this week as they debut, 5-1 record. They move up 2 spots in this particular FCS coaches poll, points to 394. Have a week off. Next game, October the 19th, 7:30, a Thursday edition on ESPN. You on at Morgan State. FAMU, oddly enough, the other team in the top 25 is number 16. They stay at 16, they do not move up or down, obviously. Florida A&M is 5-1. They have 248 points. Next game is also in 2 weeks, essentially, as they are open this week. But it's a Saturday contest, the 21st, at Texas Southern University right here in Houston. So looking forward to that, as I'm hearing the Rattlers are invading in Houston and planning to make it their home and have a good time. So I'm fascinated to see what that looks like. What that does, even with a colleague right here at Texas Southern University. Shout out to Dr. Todd as he's in the college education getting it done. With that being said, we'll take our first break, come back on the other side. Time to get into the poll rankings and see what Mike and AD think about the mid-major poll rankings and get into a little bit of talk about some games of the week. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this first break.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
As technology continues to bring changes to the world of education, it's time we also reimagine teacher professional development. Gone are the days of one-size-fits-all learning that can only be accessed at a specific time and place. The Stride PD Center is an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that allow educators to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. The best professional development plans are those that include a level of flexibility and choice for educators. Whether you're a teacher, school, or district, visit us today to take charge of your learning.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Press the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, yeah, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We got the entire group back, and they already acted up, cracking jokes. All I know is the first round on one, second round on the other, so we good to go. Let's party. With that being said, we're going to get in the mid-major rankings. Top 7. We do have a new team in the top 7 this week, so we'll let you know what that looks like as we get right into it. Dropping out this week was West Virginia State Yellow Jackets, 3-2, 2-1, as they fall after a tough loss this week. Notre Dame of Ohio, that is, they fall out. It is hard to get in the top 7 up here. You got to be really having a pretty great season. But receiving votes, we have some teams just on the outside. That's West Virginia State, as they are in the mix with 116 points. Fayetteville State Broncos at 4-2, 4-0. They on the outside looking in, having a good season this far, but they're solid as things look. Albany State Golden Rams also on the outside, 4-2, 4-0. Big games this week as they have 111 points. We'll see what that looks like in the mix. Starting with number 7, let's get into it. Miles Golden Rams. Golden Bears, let me get that straight. Miles Golden Bears, 4-2, 3-1. They dropped 4 spots after a tough home loss last week, 131 points, but they're still in the top 7. And number 6, Virginia Union Panthers jump into the top 7 at 5-1, 3-1, quietly getting things done. And they're the new entrants in the top 7 this week as they just continue to win, 136 points. And number 5, Allen Yellow Jackets, 5-1, 3-1, 140 points. They move up 2 spots as they get back to winning ways. Fort Valley State Wildcats, quietly, if there's such a thing, 5-1 after 5 straight, including 5 of the conference games. 1 for moving up 2 spots. Bringing us to number 3, Tuskegee Golden Tigers are 4-0. They're rolling after they got a bounce back win, 106 points. They move up 2 spots this week to number 3. At number 2, you start to hear the same refrain. These teams just know how to win. One of only 2 undefeated teams at the entire HBCU football playing framework. Obviously, in the mid-major division, they're at 6-0, 4-0. 3 first-place votes. Gained a first-place vote after a big road victory in closing somebody's homecoming out. 183 points, but they remain at number 2. Bringing us to number 1, the Benedict Tigers, 6-0, 4-0. 6 first-place votes, 106 to remain at number 1. They drop a first-place vote after a tough road victory, but they get it done this week at number 1. Fascinating to see what's going on. Since Charles is fine, the second one, I'm going to hold on him, and I'm going to go to Mike since he's first up the bat, and we've sent him to the bar. Go ahead, Mike. What are your thoughts on the top 7 in terms of the mid-majors this week?
No, actually, this will be 2 weeks in a row, Doc, that I really don't have anything to say. I think you hit it. It's Benedict.
Might be
Virginia
State. The 3rd round, AD Drew. I'm feeling good.
It's Benedict. They
buttered me up.
I don't know if I'd have Tuskegee at number 3 after that shellacking against A&M, but you know they are. I knew
it was too good to be true.
They are bouncing back. I mean, but they'll be switching place with Fort Valley because Fort Valley has Benedict coming up, so Fort Valley will be falling. So, that whole middle section gonna get shot up. Virginia Union may move up a little bit, but the first 2 are spot on. But number 3, 4, 5, they ain't suspect. To be honest. They are real suspect.
Man, Mike is already getting into predictions. I love it.
I don't know how you can be. How can you be number 3 and get a shellacking like that? I mean, I have one touchdown, 10 points, but they got shellacked. But yes, they bounced back. But come on, number 3. That's only. Other than that, you got number 1 and 2 right.
Thank you, Mike. Charles, since that's your time to go to the bar. Come on and step to the plate and tell me what you think.
You know what? Mike done hit it on the head because Benedict gonna clean out. I don't know how much in the SIAC. Virginia Union. Virginia Union got a real opportunity to just keep moving up, keep moving up, keep moving up. But real quick, let me ask this question.
That's pretty good.
I thought Miles had the best chance of knocking off Benedict, especially on the road. Benedict going on the road 2 miles. Is there another team that can really stay within the stratosphere of Benedict?
I'm going to go to our SIAC expert, AD Drew, talk about that first and then give me your thoughts on the top 7.
Are you saying in the SIAC, Charles?
Yeah.
Miles was the one,
Okay.
in my opinion. Miles.
So with that being said, let me follow up before I ask you the top 7 because it sounded like you were going to go there. In terms of the playoff, what about if it goes, what was that, 2nd, 3rd round, and you see a Virginia State Benedict type matchup? Obviously, if they get into the playoffs, we're forecasting a little bit here.
Yes.
To your point, since you kind of alluded to it, maybe you said, "Are you talking about SIAC?" What if we stretch that to a playoff quarterfinals matchup between Virginia State Trojans and the Benedict Tigers? Can the Trojans get it done?
The Trojans have enough of a ball control offense where they can keep the ball away. But the problem with that is that Benedict defense negates a lot of teams' ball control offense, which will put you out of character. And once you get out of character and get behind with this Benedict team and they could just send them ends after your quarterback, from what I've seen over the last 2 years, it's pretty much over with at that point when you're playing Benedict.
Good stuff. With that being said, go ahead and give me your thoughts on the top 7.
All right, Doc. I got on paper this top 7 looks good, but I've got a couple of, as our City Hall says, things to make you go, All right, let's take this. Let's look at this. You've got a Fayetteville State outside of the top 7 who beat Virginia Union. You've got 2 A&O teams in their conference, Fayetteville State and Albany State, outside of your top 7. All right. You've got a Miles team who lost to the number 1 team, had the game won, lost by a field goal, sitting at 7. All right. And also that same Miles team lost to an FCS by 1 single point, Dr. Cavil. All right. So, and then, of course, Mike pointed out, we took a shellacking to Alabama A&M, but we defeated Fort Valley State. So what do you do with that Tuskegee Miles mix? All right. And speaking of Fort Valley State, Allen, who sits behind Fort Valley State, got their butts whipped against them also.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things that could be going on here with these teams and everything. The one thing I will say, Miles should not be number 7. I don't know how you fix the rest of them, but Miles should not be sitting at number 7, Dr. Cavil.
That's why I said that 3, 4, 5, that 3, 4, 5, they're gonna go away anyway. I'm serious. And Virginia Union and Miles gonna move up.
I think that's the unique thing between the power rankings that you all do Sunday night, which is a beautiful thing because it allows us to juxtapose about people's voting polls and things of that nature. A large component of this poll for most of the voters is what have you done most recently. Obviously, taking consideration all of them, but the computers take that into more consideration because it's just a data point in terms of what is your overall weight of the season and games you played. So I think that's why you see a little more variability in this poll because Miles just lost. And although it was it was close, many people, if they had a player 2, they would have won. But you also got to figure that it was at home and they couldn't quite get it done. So I think those are kind of things. So I would not be surprised, alluding to Mike, with the other teams and the variability and the playing, that Miles will quickly ascend back to the top. But I think for this week, that's why they kind of dropped out. And it'll be interesting when you start looking at Fayetteville State Broncos, Albany State. What does that mean for them? But at the end of the day, we know what it is. You keep winning, and you'll find a way and get it done. But to your point, that's kind of where the variability. But I like the way you said something to say.
Oh, variability.
Did you see who Albany State has this weekend?
Studying that now, variability. Woo.
Did you see who Albany State has this weekend? Albany State will be dropping.
Yeah,
right. And Charles, he's getting into his stats a little bit. Variability. He perked up when we said that.
Yeah, I was like in class, like, wait, who's talking variability? Wait, what's going on?
Wait a minute. You just wait a minute, AD. You just said Albany State will be dropping. And don't they have Allen?
And then who they got behind Allen?
They got Miles. Now that one they may drop. I don't know.
And then who they got 4 weeks, like 3 weeks from that.
Yeah, but you said Allen. Okay, we talking about Allen. Let's go back to Allen. Yes, and then they still have to go. Yeah, they got Fort Valley. Yeah, I agree. But you said Allen. I don't know if that's necessarily given.
See, this is why I love the poll ranking, because this is why this is important. And this is a shout out to the SIDs and other media folks. As you start talking about your games of the week and players to watch, make sure that you consider doing the rankings. Whichever one you choose to use, that's up to you. But when you have these top 7, top 10 matchups, put it out there so you can have some discussion in terms of the ranking. With sports information directors, the media group that we have out there, always use those numbers to talk about the variability and the ups and downs as you see colleagues talking about these matchups to come and what it will mean for the poll. It also gets those that are watching HBCUs into it and gives them an idea more than just where teams sit in the conference standings. It gives a more broad view of what that looks like. With that being said, Mike, before we take our next break, I did want to quickly give you a chance that you wanted to add something in terms of GCAC, in terms of the expansion, and what are other things, 2 other things actually that should be considered when you talk about the move of expansion most recently, in terms of the Virgin Island, and obviously this last one that was announced with Wilberforce and joining the GCAC.
No, thanks, Dr. Bill. I joined in a little bit late, so my beer tab's running. But I heard that you and AD talking, and I heard, AD talking about the spring sports and some of the benefits of getting you, conference bids. And then you talked about Title IX, but I was kind of looking at it from a business standpoint. Their footprint has increased. And, history lesson, 3-4 years ago, people were talking about the GCAC like it was about to go off the cliff. Let's be honest. Or that it may
like
go over.
Pac-12.
And now they pick up the Virgin Islands, they pick up Wilberforce, which is Ohio. Their footprint, their visibility, and their brand has now increased. Really by a factor of 10. If you look at business models, the fact that they've increased their visibility and footprint of that conference means, whoa, they get more eyes, they get more sponsorship potential. So I think there's a business aspect to their expansion as well. You guys are probably way more experts than I am, but now I'm sure this is not the last that we heard of their expansion or, media deals, given this, they moved to 12, now they got bids, now they get more eyes, now they get more visibility. So I think that's another aspect from a business standpoint that this move really alludes to.
Great points. We'll cut it. The business of sports, HBCU sports, we love to talk about in an added dimension you get here that you don't necessarily get anywhere else. Let's get into our second break. We'll come back over on the other side and talk about some of these key matchups at the mid-major level. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
You see, Head & Shoulders has Scalp Shield technology, protects against flakes even between washes. It's never not working.
Kind of like us. We're never not working. Number 15?
That's my rub.
Ooh, nice.
Never not working.
Never, ever, never, ever not working.
Welcome, everybody, to Juneau, Alaska.
I don't like this one.
Me neither.
Let's get out of here.
Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want to loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Mills inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and A.D. Drew. Really going in. We're going to give you some of these top matchups as we talked about. First one is one that we're using as a classic. It's called the Lucille M. Brown Community Youth Bowl. It's in Richmond, Virginia, who we still home of the Virginia Union University Panthers. It is a matchup featuring the top 6 programs we talked about today. We went to our overall ranking indicator. Bowie State has dropped all the way to 16 from just being in the top 7 for the first couple of weeks to let you know what kind of slide they are on. But it's a CIAA matchup, October 14th, high noon, if you would. Bowie State Bulldogs, 3-3, 2-2 on the season. Can they stop the slide as they go to number 6 Virginia Union Panthers that had 5-1, 3-1? Be fascinating to see what this looks like. Let me go to you first, Mike. What are your thoughts in terms of this matchup? Can Bowie Bulldogs stop the slide?
No, no. If you look at, well, we can deal with their statistics, but let's look at Fed opponents. Bowie State hung a whopping 10 points on St. Augustine, a whopping 10 points. Virginia Union hung 47 points on St. Augustine. And then you look at Livingstone, almost the same thing, not as much of a difference. So I look at Bowie State and I'm like, what's happening? You know, offensively, they were moving the ball a little bit more early the season. I'm wondering if there's an efficiency issue or what, or is it they're just not that team of years past that we thought they were, or what? But needless to say, to make things short, this has Virginia Union written all over it for me.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Let me go to you, Charles, and see what your thoughts in terms of this matchup that features CIAA teams here.
Well, I think the luster is off Bowie State a little bit here. And one of the things that really jumps out at me, they're coming off a game where they could not stop Kemo Clark. Kemo Clark rushes for 244 yards in that game, 4 touchdowns. And guess who's coming this weekend? Jada Byers coming back into the fray. And he's coming off a game where he rushed for 246 yards and 2 touchdowns. Until they can stop the run, the slide will continue. I got Virginia Union big in this one.
Good stuff. Good stuff. With that being said, let me go to you, AD Drew. You agree with your two colleagues here, or are you going in a different direction?
No, we not bucking the train over here, down here in South Georgia. We are going. We know how to follow the leader. Look, I'm with both these guys. That running game of Virginia Union, you know, you pictured Jada Byers, Charles. They've got 2 other backs there at Virginia Union when Jada Byers went down. So I'm not worried about it. I missed the press conference with Dr. Parker today, Dr. Alvin Parker. I'm normally on his Tuesday press conference. But just his mindset this year, one game at a time, they're going to do what they need to do to get this victory. And you know he's going to stick with that potent run game, shorten the game, and they're going to just take this to the house, man. It's almost a done deal, but last time I said that, they lost to Fayetteville State. So there is a glimmer of hope, but it's just a glimmer. It's not a full forest fire.
It was not just a glimmer, it was a rainstorm as well. Not saying that had anything to do with it, but hey, boy, we're counting down to what that Virginia Union Panthers and Virginia State Trojans matchup
we are
at the end of the season. Yep. That could feature a top 3, top 4 type matchup, depending on how things go. So it'd be fascinating to kind of keep our eyes on that. I know it's a way off, but if we can get fortunate and see that matchup, boy, it would be a beautiful thing. I'm going to stick with you, AD Drew, as we're going to go deep into Florida. That is Miami Gardens, Florida. Beatty T. Ferguson Stadium, Battle of Miami Gardens, Independent Sun Conference game, Saturday, October 14th at 11 a.m. for us in the Central Standard Part. High noon for them over there. Independent non-conference mid-major division game of the week features overall number 16 in NAIA poll rankings, St. Thomas University, Florida Bobcats that are 4-2 and 4-1, and feature our number 0 strength of HBCU schedule, number 13 Florida Memorial Lions, that are 3-2 and 2-0 in the conference race. Drew, what are your thoughts on this intriguing matchup?
First of all, your pollsters have not been paying attention to the NAIA. Florida Memorial should be ranked higher than 13 in the Dr. Cavil's inside the HBCU Sports Lab poll. Matter of fact, of the Black College Sports Network rankings, they were in the top 5 as far as the computer rankings. That's how good they are. And you want to know why they're in the top 5, Dr. Cavil? They lead the Sun. First of all, you have to know about the Sun Conference. This Sun Conference is one of the premier conferences in AIA. They lead the Sun Conference in offense, scoring, yardage, passing offense, rushing offense.
Preach.
But who's right behind them? St. Thomas is directly behind them in all of those categories. And if you haven't looked, I'll go ahead and tell you. There are 3 undefeated teams in the Sun Conference. There will only be a maximum of 2 undefeated teams after Saturday because 2 of those 3 undefeated teams play each other. this Florida Memorial team, Coach Greg Ruffin, when he was at Edward Waters, said, I can go get a 4-4 anywhere down here in the state of Florida. They grow like weeds down here. Well, somebody figured it out down there at Florida Memorial, because 47 points a game, Dr. Cavil.
They got their fair share out there.
4 of their 5 games, they have scored 50 they have scored 47 or more points, Dr. Cavil. Now let's think about it. Their 2 losses, they're 3-2, and I'm gonna close it out on this. They lost to FCS. That's moving up not 1 but 2 levels for all y'all who don't know. And they still put up 500 yards against Grambling in that game. And they lost it. And they lost the overtime game, 47. I think it was 50-47 in week 0 when they were still trying to figure things out. So this Memorial team looks like it's for real, y'all. Y'all better pay attention. I got Memorial winning at home.
Man, they'll pay attention now that you brought that down. Charles, Mike, I'm going to go to you. Usually we wait till Sunday to take them to church or get them prepped for church. Yes. It looks like A.D. Drew is getting them ready for an early Bible study in terms of what he's doing. Exactly. So, Mike, what are your thoughts as you were talking about preach? What are your thoughts on this factor?
I hadn't seen St. Thomas play. I've seen glimpses of Florida Memorial. A.D. Drew is absolutely right. If you look at all of the statistics, too, 47 a game, rushing. And here's the other reason why they'll win. If you look at their leaders in stats, you look at rushing, of the top 7 runners in the conference, 3 belong to Florida Memorial.
Yeah.
That's too many. Now, St. Thomas is up there in stopping defense, but I don't know. I think that Florida Memorial offense with leading and rushing, passing, offense, points scored, I think they'll pull this one out. I think it'll – you also look at their points, average margin of victory, their last few games. Look, I'm about 10 points higher on average than St. Thomas, data point-wise speaking. So I think that Florida Memorial just has a little too much bringing to the field. I think they should be in the rankings. I agree. Brother A.D., you are the expert, but I agree completely with that.
Bro, they put up 72 last week. 72.
Yeah.
Like a basketball game.
I said, average margin of victory.
It's literally nothing else I can add to it, because I think, AD, you touched on it. They turned my head when I saw they had over 500 yards of offense on Grambling's defense. And Grambling has a pretty decent defense. That Lewis Matthews, Sundiana Anderson, they got some guys that can fly around over there on that side of the ball. So that turned my head. But then I looked up and saw 72 points last week. I said, wait a second. So I was sitting around waiting like, I wonder when are they going to be a matchup for us to take a look at, and lo and behold, what do we have? We got Florida Memorial on the docket as far as a key matchup to take a look at. I'm gonna go with the Lions on this because they remind you of those high octane offenses that can't be stopped.
Yes, sir. Let's get
Billy Joe
Michael Washington. Roy said Michael Washington will be drinking a Tiger Woods. Silas says, Charles, you and my frat brother make a great broadcasting team. We're going to have to make you an honorary Panther. We won't tell JSU. So people are excited what you're doing on Mike. I wanted to share with them. It was pretty cool. Let's get into our next break. Come back on the side. Great segment. And we'll get into the major poll rankings on the other side. Stick with us. Be right back.
T. Madden and Associates is a sophisticated and experienced law firm located in your neighborhood. We're turning injury to cash.
T. Madden and Associates obtained almost $2 million for my injury. They turned my injury to cash.
Now, we can't guarantee how much your injury is worth, but we've recovered millions for our clients.
Call T. Madden and Associates at 833-PAID-123. That's 833-PAID-123.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want to lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Ville. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, we have Professor Drew, Professor Bishop, Professor Washington. Let's get into the top 7 poll rankings for the major division in week number 6 as we keep things going. Let's get in the top rankings as things have changed, and maybe they've not. Dropping out this week after we had a top 7 matchup, the Southern Jaguars took it to the chin, fighting in there, had to lead, but could not hold on at home, so they fall out of the polls and fall to 2-3, 2-1 on the season. Also falling out this week, Alcorn State Braves, even though they got the win, they could not get in the top 10 with everybody doing different things, 3-3 on the season, 2-1 this week. Receiving votes, Alcorn State Braves at 3-3, 2-1, 160 points, 65 points. Southern Jaguars, 2-3, 2-1, 154 points. Alabama A&M Bulldogs are 3-3, 1-2, 147 as they also fall out of the polls this weekend. Really tight in the top 7. Let's get into it. We have 2 teams that jump into the top rankings this week as we kind of see those teams at the bottom trading spots. With wins on, wins off, we'll see if that clears up some things. At number 7, we have Prairie View and the Panthers. All right, 3-3, 3-1. Jump back in the poll this week, 174 points. At number 6, you have the Grambling State Tigers at 3-3. They fall a spot to 3-3 on the season, 2-1, as they stay in the top 7, even though they had a tough loss. At number 5, Hampton Pirates fall 2 spots this week as they fell as well, 3-2, 1-1, 187 points. At number 4, you had the Tennessee State Tigers. They were not ranked. They jumped back in the poll after they get a win this past weekend at 3-2, 1-1 on the season. Looking at the top 3, at number 3, Jackson State Tigers are 4-2, 2-1, 215 points. They move up a spot after they get a big neutral site victory over Alabama A&M, top 7 matchup, top 10 matchup last week. But they get it done. And number 2, North Carolina Central Eagles, 5-1, big victory, top 25 victory, but was not enough to squeeze out FAMU. They have 6 first-place votes, 245 points. Reign in number 2. They take one of the first-place points that came away from Hampton last week, but guess who got the other one? Number 1, Florida A&M Rattlers, 5-1, 4-0, 6 first-place votes, 246 points. Just edging out North Carolina Central by 1 point. Some polls have Central number 1, some have FAMU. I wouldn't argue whatever way you go. I'll just be straight up with that before I even ask going to the rankings. It's just that tight of a race. It looks like these 2 teams are on a collision course to play in the Celebration Bowl. And boy, at this point, you talking about what could be a fascinating matchup. Can both teams hold on? It's probably more important that Central finishes the season now as they get in the conference race. Think about this, at 10-1, as FAMU may be able to bump their head and still get in. But could you think about this? You could have a 10-1 matchup versus a 11-1 matchup between the MEAC and SWAC. Both teams in the top 25. If they continue to win at that time, you talk about maybe 2 teams in the top 10, certainly one of them just outside of it. With that framework in terms of what it looks at, obviously 1 and 2 in the poll rankings for everybody. It would be fascinating for that matchup, but there's still a lot to be played for. In terms of those teams out there, Southern says, hey, we might want a rematch. Alcorn State, the Braves says, we want our shot. We're going to go down the whole list in the West. Grambling says, hey, what about us? Prairie View says, hey, we'll take a homecoming shot, and then we'll take a do-over as well. Did I miss anybody? Texas Southern says we're 0-2, but it's just stopped. We're just a game back. Let us start our trend on it. So man, it's interesting. If Jackson State is sneaking in the weeds, say, hey, mess around and find out. With that being said, what are your thoughts in terms of my top 7? Drew, I'm going to start with you.
All right. I'm going to do some math right here, Dr. Cavil. FAMU Central, both with 6 first-place votes. You mean somebody had the nerve not to give either FAMU or Central a 1 or a 2? Because that's the only reason that you would have a difference is somebody had to vote Central 3 on their ballot.
That's right.
I don't know who that was, Dr. Cavil, but you need to question what they were doing when they put that ballot in. That's all I'm going to say about that. Because, like you said, they're either 1 or 2. Tomato. It's real subjective, but you can't argue with them. But for somebody who actually had the nerve to write 3 on their ballot, you need to question them, Dr. Cavil. Now,
I agree with you.
You say this is a week-to-week poll, Dr. Cavil. When I look at what's going on up here, 5 of your 7 teams won in your top 7. But the another team that won that's receiving votes barely received votes. They're technically number 10. How is Alcorn not in with a win over Grambling? But Hampton and Grambling are still in. Posters, help me out with that one. Explain that one. Not explain that to me. Y'all can have it now.
Charles, explain it.
I can't. I ain't even gonna try. But you know what? I'm sitting here laughing. I'm like, it's Florida A&M, it's North Carolina Central, and it's a whole muddle of folks right up under them. But the thing that I really take a look at, boy, we got a lot of football to play. I'm not ready to pencil either one of them into the Celebration Bowl just yet, because I just think that over October and November, we just gonna see a lot of shaking out that's gonna happen. And I got some interesting matchups. I mean, and on paper, it doesn't look like something that'll jump out at you, but FAMU making a trip to Houston to take on Texas Southern, to me, that's going to be an interesting game. I think when North Carolina Central gets into conference play, as great as they've looked thus far, I just feel like something weird is going to happen within MEAC play, because I think they just play good football. I think the margin of error is so thin going forward that it's just, you're just going to have a lot of things shake out. And let me big up Tennessee State. They're playing some good football. It's been a second or two since we watched Tennessee State play some really decent football. It's good to see them back in the mix, in the top 5 of things. But they got a guy that can tackle everything moving out there on the field. Moreau Beard, Draylon Ellis is playing, decent, competent quarterback play, and they run the ball. They're touching all the elements. So Tennessee State, I'm just keeping an eye on them with regards to what they're doing, and keep an eye on the Prairie View A&M Panthers. I keep saying it. Keep an eye on them. If they quit shooting themselves in the foot, they can be an explosive team.
Yeah, I watched and looked at their stats when I was asking questions during the SWAC football media day of Coach McDowell. And it just came across that I was looking at their wide receivers. They had 6 wide receivers that caught balls, but the average pass between the receivers like 12 yards. And you've seen these plays of 20 yards, 30 yards, 35, 70 yards for a touchdown catch. And I was like, not only do they spread it around, you can't just key on anybody, but if they get loose and when they do make passing plays, they are deep yardage. I mean, some of them are yards at the catch, some of them are down the field. So it's intriguing that you're right. If they can get some balance in terms of what that looks like, and this is not including that they can run the ball. So it's fascinating to kind of keep your eyes on it, and I don't think a lot of people are really paying attention to it. With that being said, let me go to you, Mike, to see if you can explain.
No, I cannot, and I agree with Mr. AD on some of his points.
Nobody wants to explain it.
How there is no way to explain it. I think you got 1 and 2. That's it. I think for me, North Carolina Central, I don't want to call it, they're in the drive. They're really that truck you presented in our previous broadcast, and who's in the driver's seat. There's any teams in the driver's seat, it's North Carolina Central. They are 2 teams up against the next team. Now they're getting into conference play. Who's going to get them? Howard? Morgan State? Yeah, Howard narrowly beat Northwest. But who's really going to stack up against them?
Hello, Orangeburg, South Carolina. Hi, South Carolina State.
I will give you South Carolina. Yes. That's probably the only team that I'm looking for.
And they trended up, Mike. So watch out for them.
Yeah, okay. So, I will say that. So I agree with AD's point on why Grambling is actually there. They lost. Why Alcorn State is not there. Yeah. And personally, I think North Carolina Central, you can make an argument. I personally think they should number 1. If to be the champ, you got to beat the champ.
Yeah,
I'm just a fond believer in that. Yeah. And that SWAC West is going to go. We said it at the beginning. We said it at Media Day. That SWAC West, you're going to have folks moving up and down each week from this point on, depending on who they play. And CB, I echo your points about Prairie View A&M. If they can stop shooting themselves in the foot, making dumb mistakes, doing stuff that causes me to drink weird stuff, then yes, Prairie View does have a really good shot at it. So we'll see. This next half of the season, at least for the SWAC West, will be very, very interesting. I still want to put a data point. We saw kind of a little bit of vulnerability in FAMU. That southern line. Yeah. We saw some vulnerabilities. We saw that Superman could bleed, basically. That southern line, they did something with FAMU. Just mark that in quotations as a Bootsy data point right there. There's some vulnerabilities there.
The only thing is I'm not sure they're going to face another defensive front quite like Southern.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. I won't say that.
They got by Alabama State and Southern. Those probably the best 2 defensives out there.
And in my opinion, no question, in terms of what that looks like. To Charles's point, I want to put out there, you're right. The record may not reflect it, and people are really down on Howard because of the way they lost to Hampton, but we're seeing now that loss to Hampton may not be as bad as it looked in terms of the way it happened. And some of their losses to FBS, we know it doesn't necessarily translate, but they seem to be playing some good football and still has to travel to Howard this year. So that can be a little more interesting. We'll find out in a couple of weeks. They travel to Morgan State. I just don't think they have enough offense to get it done. Defense, they can at least muck it up and make it look close. And then South Carolina State, they seem to riding the ship and they playing coy like they always do. And I think they got to go back down there, Orangeburg. So you just never know. That's always a problem. I'm fascinated what that looks like. With that being said, let me shout out to former President Alveda Lambda, a FAMU alumni supporter, brother Byron Gautier's on here. Troy Lamont. He says A&T and G doing his homework were ranked 10 and 11 in 2017 when they played in the Celebration Bowl. Good stuff. And this one I took a picture of. I had to give him credit. Even though I'm like, you messing with my pose, I'm going to get on it for this. But he said, ridiculous that North Carolina Central, NCCU, isn't number 1. Hashtag what TH. A&T Aggie saying that about Central? Man, I got to give him credit for that. Let's go to our next break. Come back on the other side. We'll get the matchups. And we'll call it a day. Stick with it after this break. Shout out to Troy, Lamont, Coleman.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties. Through its programs, Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and parenting education coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN SportsWrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN SportsWrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Mills inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're gonna get right into the group where we got some nice major division matchups this week. We have in Jackson, Mississippi Veterans Memorial Stadium. It's homecoming. Let me say it again. It's homecoming. SWAC matchup Saturday, October the 14th. We'll do this as our major classic game of the week. We didn't have an official classic game, so we decided we go to homecoming route. With that being said, 2 o'clock, ESPN Plus. You have Alabama State, 2-3, 1-2. They asked for this last year in terms of wanting to be on the schedule homecoming. Well, Coach got it. Number 3 Jackson State Tigers at home as they ascend to the 3 ranking. 4-2 on the season, 2-1. If I had to look at Alabama State in terms of where they are in the overall ranking of the 21 teams, they're at 12. So you have them outside of the top 10, but it's fascinating to see what this may look like. Charles, I'm going to start with you being Mississippi native. What are your thoughts in terms of this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I take a look at this matchup, and it's a very interesting matchup from the standpoint of Alabama State plays defense. They play good, hard defense. Even 2022, when Jackson State went to Montgomery Tech on Alabama State, that game was nip-tuck. It was a hard-fought game, and Jackson State was able to pull out to the fourth quarter. And the underlying question with Alabama State, and we've seen it again this year, can they score any points? They're only averaging 16 points a game. And for that reason, I think Jackson State has enough firepower where they can, and caveat, which Jason Brown do you get? I'll put it out there like that. Which Jason Brown? If you get the good Jason Brown, I think Jackson State should be able to get the W in this one. You get the so-so Jason Brown, where we having to substitute the quarterback, backup quarterback in for a couple of series so he can kind of, get his bearings again. And it's going to be a hard 4 quarters for Jackson State. But good Jason Brown, Jackson State is a different team. Okay, so Jason Brown, yeah. So I got Jackson State in this one.
Mike Washington?
Yeah, I go with that. I mean, you look at your rankings, but statistically, 16 points a game, that's it. And I'm sorry, and they're not doing too much on the defensive side. So I'm gonna roll with Jackson State on this one. I don't care how good or how mediocre Jason Brown is. Jackson State still finds a way to put up points, and I think they'll find a way over this team. The other thing I guess I got to think of is, let's look on the other side defensively. Can Jackson State stop Alabama State? And the answer for me is yes. So my vote goes with Jackson State on this one.
Good stuff. Let me go to you, AD Drew.
You said Alabama State was 12, Dr. Cavil. That means Charles, couple years, I'm getting ready to use a statistical term. I don't need you to go crazy on me. That means they are the median of the conference. They are smack dab in the middle of our FCS. Well, because of that, I need to lead to a team who's in the upper quarter of our rankings. It's real simple. Mike just hit it on the head. 16 points a game is 16 points a game. That's not good offensively. If that's what your defense was giving up, I'd love to see something like that. But that's not. Your offense is scoring 16 points a game, and your defense is giving up about a respectable 21 points a game. Also, it's a doggone shame that they can't figure out how to get the ball to Keyshawn Johnson, who is arguably the best
receiver in the conference.
In the SWAC, but he has nobody who could consistently get him the ball where he needs to get the ball to make that offense poke. If they could figure that out, that 16 points a game easily turns to 24 to 27 points per game for Alabama State. If that happens, Charles, and you get bad Jason Brown, Jackson State might be in trouble. I don't think it's going to happen, but just want you to be on alert for that.
No doubt.
Good stuff. Sticking with you, AD Drew, let's go to Nashville, Tennessee, Nissan Stadium. Since we're talking homecoming, let's stick with homecoming. We have Norfolk State Spartans at 2-3. Hadn't started the conference play at number 4. Tennessee State Tigers 3-2. One coming off a big victory. Big South OVC matchup against the MEAC. Saturday, October the 14th, 5 p.m. It's a late homecoming. So everybody will be excited, lathered up, ready to go. ESPN Plus. If I had to give you the overall ranking for Norfolk State, they would be 14 in terms of this week of where they are measured. With that being said, Eddie Drew, what are your thoughts between this matchup, Tennessee State and Norfolk State?
Who starts homecoming at 5 o'clock local time? That's question number one. Before I even get into the analysis, who starts homecoming at 5 o'clock? There's going to be somebody who's not going to make it to 5 o'clock because they're morning into the afternoon. So beware of that. Number two, people at Tennessee State, maximize your revenue opportunities in this particular game because you will draw more people to this one game than you are going to draw the rest of the season combined at home. I just want y'all to make sure that y'all maximize your revenue opportunities. Now, let's get to what's happening on the field. Tennessee State, good defense, good running game. Norfolk, inconsistent. We've seen good Norfolk, we've seen bad Norfolk, and we have seen ugly Norfolk this year. We don't know which one of them is getting on that bus heading to Nashville. But Tennessee State beats ugly Norfolk, Tennessee State beats bad Norfolk, and a good Tennessee State beats a good Norfolk in this particular game, should we get there. And also, Dr. Cavil, let's see who's gonna win on the halftime. That's gonna be the battle.
Yeah.
That's right. Usually we wait till Thursday to talk about the marching sport, but since Drew brought it up, he's absolutely correct. The Legion is coming. The Spartan Legion is coming to invade
Legion versus
Nashville,
Aristocrats.
take on the Aristocrats.
Yeah.
So not only do you have a major HBCU matchup here on the football field, you also have a nice one in terms of the Battle of the Bands. So again, you talking about the attendance for this game, it could even get bigger than that because I heard Norfolk State wants to show out how they travel. One of the first ones, and they're doing a precursor to next year as they go to Atlanta for the MEAC SWAC Challenge. So they're taking it and playing, and they have a lot coming out of Atlanta to come to this game is what I'm hearing. So fascinating. You can go to whatever direction you want to go with all that information, Charles. What are your thoughts?
I think Norfolk State, very interestingly, is a lot like Jackson State. Which one are you going to get? I think you touched on it. Which Otto Coons are you going to get? And that's what makes this chess match really kind of interesting to me. I take a look and I go back. Norfolk State got the win against Hampton, but Hampton ran through them to over 200 yards in that game. So that was the thing that kind of, as sort of a check mark because Tennessee State is going to run the football. They're going to have multiple guys. They're going to pound you for 4 quarters. It's going to be a very physical contest. Can Norfolk hold up? Well, that's the question with regards to that. Defensively, they're starting to kind of look like old Tennessee State team where you got linebackers flying around and they're starting to get to the quarterback. Defensive line, big, fast guys that come after the quarterback. So I got Tennessee State winning homecoming. I think Tennessee State is a team that's on the come up. I like what Eddie George is doing with them up there. I think the Tigers will get them.
Speaking of Coach Eddie George, had great comments. Check out his comments HBCU Game Day, where he talked about the disappointment and his challenge in speaking up in regards to the funding that Tennessee State has not had. This is the second time that he spoke out. He was asked a question during the media session today, and so he talked about it. With that being said, Coach Eddie George says he's ready. He has a team going in the right directions. Is that what you think? And what are your concerns with Coach Odoms in terms of him bringing the Legion, all his fans and band football team in the match?
Well, I'll leave the band with the band. I think we'll see. I tip my edge to the Aristocrats personally, but we'll see what the Legion gonna do. One thing that concerns me about Norfolk State, they've had a couple of good wins, but they're like a roller coaster. I think both CB and AD alluded to it. They are allowing 250 yards on the ground rushing. Okay. You know how many they putting up? Oh, about 180, 190. So they're allowing teams to rush through them. And I look at kind of browsing a couple of games. That's a big concern. Because you look at Tennessee State, a team that can rush the ball as well. So I got to give this edge, just looking on who can rush the ball, defensive sound. I don't know which team I'll get, but even at its best, I think Tennessee State is up on the come up. They've had a few solid wins this week. They're in the middle of the OVC. So I give this one to Tennessee State.
Good stuff. It's another opportunity for the MEAC in terms of what they're doing non-conference wise. The big matchups, they had 12 games scheduled against the Coastal Athletic Association, formerly known as the Colonial CAA. Because the one game last week was Stony Brook against Morgan State was canceled, you still had the game that we talked about with Elon on Sunday, taking the L to North Carolina Central. The MEAC finished 6-5 against the CAA. So this is another chance for them to continue to make a statement in terms of the non-conference victories. To me, interesting, they have finished with a winning record against FCS program, but end up having a losing record against the CIAA. Football is just a weird sport sometimes. And it happens.
Yep.
With that being said, thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. And I guess I must add, they're 1-1 against the SWAC, but they get a chance with the big trophy at the end to have a winning record with that one. But SWAC says it's time to change guard. We shall see. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Oftentimes we have AD Drew joining us every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. Sunday at 9 as we get you prepared before you get out to church. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest in the lab. With that being said, make sure you check out on Wednesday, ONG Strike Zone. We'll be back on Thursday, obviously. Then on Sunday, you have the College Brown. And then Sunday, you close things up with AD Drew and Brian in terms of Brian and AD of the SportsWrap. And again, that's Saturday for Carlos Brown. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. DrKenyattaCavil. That's DrKenyattaCavil on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, 1 on Twitter. That's Facebook and YouTube on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Mike?
Lecture.
AD?
Dismissed.
Yeah.